wins next year, but they will not hit 40 wins next year. They will still be in the 30s because with all we're going to gain on defense, we're going to lose a ton with that offense. I really, truly feel. Hopefully I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong and that I'm off that transition year and that we just go straight to the, 7-8 seed phase of this Thibodeau era. And then the following year we can maybe flirt with the 4-5 seed era, and that's all we're really ever going to get past. Maybe we'll peak out as a 2 or a 3 seed under Thibodeau some year, 2 to 3 years down the road, and that'll be it. We'll still likely lose in the second round. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I can't be more optimistic and more enthused, but I want championships as a Minnesota sports fan. I don't care what franchise brings them to me. T-Wolves had a chance to set themselves up for a championship and possibly multiple championships. And instead, they settled for guaranteed mediocrity, immediate relevance, and just, one and done playoff appearances. So, but anyway, I hope I'm wrong, and I wish the T-Wolves nothing but the best of luck, and I wish Tom Thibodeau nothing but the best of luck. And I'm very anxious to see what kind of moves he's a part of here in the coming off season, both in the draft, where the Timberwolves have, I believe, the 5th most ping pong balls, as well as building the team through free agency as well, and what pieces on the team we currently have that he might look to get rid of. So I'm all curious to see how it plays out. And I do wish the T-Wolves nothing but the best of luck. I call it like I see it. All right, well, let's get a tiny bit of other NBA news thrown in here. We got to get off balls dribble and get to some balls on ice before we're running out of time. Kobe, as I mentioned, played his final game last Wednesday. He hit the game-winning shot. Granted, it wasn't a buzzer beater and it was free throws, but it ended up being the go-ahead basket that was the final score of the game and won his team the game. He did it in a 60-point effort. There was this huge, hour-long, it felt like, butt-kissing ceremony with the, courtesy reach-arounds and all, from people like Magic Johnson and you name it, where it just, everybody sat there kissing Kobe's butt and Kobe sat there listening and smiling. And then they played the game, and Kobe went off for 60 points because they actually let him play and do his thing for once. In classic Kobe fashion, it was not good field goal shooting percentage at all. It was tons of shots, with not as many makes as you would like. But ultimately, he dropped 60. It was in a winning effort. It couldn't have been more dramatic or fitting. And a awesome post that I saw and shared on Facebook, another benefit of following me on social media. With that game, Kobe Bryant has dropped 40 or more points on every team in the NBA throughout his career. There's not a single team in the NBA that Kobe Bryant didn't go up against at some point in his career and drop at least 40 on. And there are multiple 60-point teams on that list as well. In his final game, adding the final one to that impressive list. Kobe is and was a remarkable basketball talent. Love him or hate him. And it was always entertaining, if nothing else, to watch him do his thing on a basketball court. And that will be missed by me and everyone who's ever been a basketball fan, the same way it was with Jordan and all the other greats. And maybe one of these days we'll have to see where Kobe Bryant ranks in the all-time greats on our Balls Deep Thought of the Day. Maybe next week, but not this week, because I already got a Balls Deep Thought of the Day planned for this week. But so happy trails, Kobe Bryant. Golden State Warriors finished off the regular season last week, winning a record 73rd game in their regular season. They finished 73-9. That is the best all-time, surpassing the 95-96 Bulls record of 72-10. And we'll use that to segue into the playoff matchups, where number 1 seed Golden State Warriors are facing off against the Houston Rockets in a rematch of last year's Western Conference Finals, which, if you listen to the show, is how I was hoping the seeding and team selection for those final couple spots in the Western Conference playoff picture would turn out. So I was happy about that. And there has been a fair amount of entertainment value in that series thus far, at least from a 1-8 matchup. Not so much competitively, but storylines and entertaining things of that nature. But currently, they are 2 games into that series. Game 3 might be on actually right now as I'm recording. I'm not sure. I don't have a TV at my disposal as I'm hiding out in the shack to record this. In the bomb shelter. But Warriors won both the first 2 games at home. Houston will try and avoid a sweep in Game 3 at Houston. The Clippers are up 2-0 on Portland. Clippers are the 4 seed. Portland's the 5 seed. Looks like Clippers and Golden State will certainly be matching up in the second round of the Western Conference playoffs. The other half of the Western Conference bracket, we've got the 3 seed Oklahoma City Thunder with a 2-1 advantage over the 6 seed Dallas Mavericks. So Dallas in that series at least, and then in another snoozer, you've got the Spurs 2 seed holding 2-0 advantage over the Memphis Grizzlies. Definitely expect the Memphis Grizzlies to get swept in that, unless the Spurs just decide to let them have one with Pop resting players and things like that he tends to do. And moving on to the East, this series has been fairly competitive for a 1-8 stand, a 1-8 matchup. However, the result's been the same every time. Cleveland is up 2-0 on the Detroit Pistons. But like I said, good games, LeBron going off, plenty of intrigue, drama, and storyline in that series to check out as well. Then we've got the 4 versus 5 seed. That's got Atlanta up 2-0 on Boston. I want to say Atlanta just lost a key player or coach or something like that for the rest of the series. Or no, Boston did. Maybe they both did. I don't know. But anyway, I expected that series to be a little more competitive. Maybe it will be now that it's going back to Boston. Don't be surprised if Boston ends up holding home court there and making a series out of that 4-5 matchup. But so far, Atlanta's up 2-0, holding serve on their home court. Likewise with the series between the 3 seed Miami and the 6 seed Charlotte Hornets. Miami up 2-0. Hornets were red hot second half of the season. Look for them to at least get 1, if not 2 wins at home and try to make a series out of it. And then the 2-7 matchup, we've got Toronto as the 2 seed taking on the 7 seed Indiana Pacers. Indiana has won a game. They are trailing 2-1 in that series. Boom, there's your balls dribbled, done with. Moving on to another topic, and that took almost only an hour. Yay. All right, so cramming it, stuffing it in lube-free here for the last however long this ends up to be. I'm going to be pulling my best auctioneer impression, I think. But anyway, let's get off balls dribble and let's get on some balls on ice, where we got to talk some hockey talk with mine, possibly your Minnesota Wild, as well as the NHL playoff picture as it stands right now. So the Wild find themselves down 3-1 against the Dallas Stars. How did we get to that point, Scotty Ball? Well, they lost the first game in Dallas in horrible, embarrassing fashion, 4-0. Couldn't score a goal, couldn't stop nothing. Just bad performance by the team in that game 1. However, in game 2, they came out, looked like a totally different hockey team. Ended up only losing that game 2-1. And I said after that game was done, I was like, hey, we might have got a little momentum to go home with there and maybe turn this thing around a little bit. Didn't look like that at the start of Game 3, where the Wild started out down 2-0. But then they ended up ripping off 3 goals and ultimately won Game 3 at the XL Energy Center in front of the home crowd that deserved it so much by a final score of 5-3. And then last night, on April 20th, they lost a close, heartbreaking game at home, 3-2. So if you look at this, you go, well, Minnesota convincingly won a game, Dallas convincingly won a game, and then there were 2 really close, could have went either way games. Dallas won both of those games. This series could very easily right now be 3-1 in favor of the Wild. Not that they deserve it to be 3-1. I'm just saying it could have easily played out that way. So we are guaranteed at least one more game, that being Friday night here, Game 5 in Dallas. That'll be an 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time start. And if the Wild lose, that's their last game of the year. It could be the last game for a few players. Could be the last game for current interim head coach John Torchetti, who I personally hope, really hope that he is back next year as the head coach again. I like what I saw him do with this team, and I felt like where they fell short after his arrival and impact was a direct result of just wrong personnel decisions that he had no control over. It was on certain players and, the GM who put these players here. But that's just my average hockey mind opinion talking. It doesn't necessarily make it true. However, I've been remarkably accurate in my hockey predictions all year, much more so than all the other sports that I know a lot more about. So, weird. Positives for the Wild. Dubnyk's played decent. The Haula Pominville Niederreiter line has been incredible. Downsides, Suter just freaking, man, I don't like Suter running the point on the power plays when we need to score a goal. It just doesn't work. It's kind of ugly and boring, and even I know what's going on and how to stop it. That's a bad sign, by the way. But it's hard to rip on Suter too much because, for the most part, he's been the MVP of this team pretty much for, if you take the entire season. Obviously, if you take the second half of the season, Erik Haula would have to be the team MVP. But injuries also making it hard for the Wild, especially to score, primarily the injury to Parise, also including the injury to Thomas Vanek. However, if at any point your Minnesota Wild success was contingent on contribution and production from Thomas Vanek, then you were just, setting yourself up for heartbreak and disappointment anyway, because that was never going to happen. I mean, Vanek needs to go. Dumba needs to go. And by next week, I'll have at least 2 or 3 more player names probably to add to that list of guys on this roster who are eating up way too much money and not producing nearly enough on the ice to justify it, and are really holding this team back. That's what we're going to try and do next week when most likely the Wild season is done. We're going to try and identify every player that we feel is holding this team back, and thus, we need to move on from in some way. But we'll save that Wild talk for next week. For this week, since I ran way over time on the new T-Wolves head coach, let's just get you caught up on where all the hockey playoff series stand. As I mentioned, Wild trail the Stars 3-1. Game 5 coming up Friday, April 22nd in Dallas, 8:30 p.m. start. Currently, as I'm recording this late Thursday night, the St. Louis Blues and the Chicago Blackhawks are in overtime. The Blues lead that series 3-1 and are trying to knock out and eliminate the defending Stanley Cup champion Chicago Blackhawks. We would certainly be happy as Wild fans if the Blues accomplished that, I would think, for the most part. And taking a look then now at the other 2 Western Conference matchups, we have my pick to represent the Western Conference in the finals, both from the preseason and going into the postseason here. The Anaheim Ducks started out losing both home games to the Nashville Predators. I was getting really worried, but now Anaheim has gone out to Anaheim has gone out to Nashville and won both of those games and tied the series up at 2. So hopefully going back to Anaheim here on the 23rd, they can hold home ice and establish a 3-2 lead in that series. And then we've also got the San Jose Sharks currently up 3-1 on the LA Kings. I was just never sold on the LA Kings this year either. I'm going to have, if the Ducks win, I'm going to likely end up with all these picks right. I probably picked the Blackhawks, so no, I'll get the Blackhawks Blues ones wrong. But 3 out of 4 is still pretty good, right? San Jose won the first game in LA 4-3. They won the next game in LA 2-1. They lost the next game at home 2-1 in overtime, and then they won last night's game 3-2. Every game in that series decided by a single goal. The next game being here Friday night in LA. That'll be a 9:30 p.m. Central Standard Time start. See if the San Jose Sharks can close out that series. Then we'll move over to the East, where we've already got